This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
There are no spoilers in this episode, but there is mention of gun violence, suicide, and grief.
Everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I am Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing Romeo and Juliet, Baz Luhrmann's second movie in his Red Curtain trilogy. We've already done Moulin Rouge, and it is very exciting. I really love this movie. And Jess, I feel like you really love this movie, and you saw this movie when you were very young as well.
Yeah, I mean, the movie only existed on VHS when I watched it. But it was a movie that I got for my birthday or Christmas or something. I mean, it's one of the same, really. But I just remember it got a lot of play.
It did. It got a lot of play. And I feel like I saw this movie when I was at like one of my older friends' houses. And then I went back to Michigan, like where I'm originally from, and I saw this movie playing on like the movie channels, right?
Okay.
And I was like, oh, it's on the movie channels. And then I would go to the movie channels, and they're all like fuzzy and like snowy because like who has the movie channels?
Yeah.
And that was my first experience with like kind of those like old like cable channels and stuff. I don't know. I find it very, very endearing. Very endearing.
I do feel like when I first watched this movie, even though I was young, it was one of those things that you watch it when you're young, but you don't really grasp what it's about until you revisit it, later in your teen years or when you're in high school. And I mean, even though I didn't really grasp the concept about what it truly was about when I was younger, I knew Leo could still get it. He was probably my first non-animated crush.
I'm trying to think. I think he might have been mine too, because he was my first like boy poster. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, in my I wasn't allowed to have posters or anything in my room, but like in my like backyard in like our tree house, I had like posters and stuff. And it was Leo, and it was the fish tank scene, and it was like a close-up of his face, and I got it at like Spencer's or some shit. It was this whole thing. It was so good. So obviously this movie has had like a huge impact. Obviously it's been out for a really long time. We saw it when we were really young. And Jess, how many times have you seen this? Do you know?
I don't know, but I know it's been years since I last saw it. Because there were certain things when I did the rewatch for this episode, I completely forgot Paul Rudd was in this. Completely. I was so stoked. I was sending you reaction videos going, Paul's in this too? Because I think we always just focus so much on the main characters. And he still hasn't aged. I feel like I put that picture next to his, what did he just turn, like 51 or 52? And he looks exactly the same. He could literally have that conversation with himself. Like, look at us.
Look at us. We're exactly the same. We're secretly a vampire.
Please, make me immortal like that. I really... tell me about your experience. Where... Do you even remember how many times you've watched it? When did you really... I feel like you've always also been mature for your age, so you might have grasped this whole story of Romeo and Juliet when you did watch it when you were younger? Maybe the first time around?
I never grasped it in school. Because
right.
school is the worst possible place to read Shakespeare, understand Shakespeare. So school is no good.
Well, maybe this is a good point that we kind of start from the beginning in our experience from Shakespeare.
Oh, this is a really good one. Did you watch this in high school?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I think we watched that black and white version that was probably like approved by the school board kind of thing.
Yeah, we watched this in high school, and it was really, really great to watch it in like an academic setting that way. I watched it in college. I wrote a paper on it in grad school. Like I wrote, I don't know, just like a bunch of bullshit about it. But I really, really love this movie, and just the way that it is shot. Speaking of like early kind of influences and stuff, I think that this was my first like conscious exposure to John Leguizamo and the gloriousness that is Tybalt, Prince of Cats in this movie. I really think it was, and I know that our very good friend Rachel, shout out Rachel, the Prince of Cats, John Leguizamo, Tybalt, is her favorite part of this movie. Yeah, she loves him, and she loves him. She loves his intro. And I feel like that's a good way to kind of like jump out and like start about this. The intro of this movie is kind of like it's like a framework with the TVs, right, and the anchors, and then right after that we have another intro of not our main characters, but other like minor characters. And I love this intro. I love this thumb-biting intro. I love these big like bold cars. I love the beach and the difference between like the Capulets and the Montagues and what they look like. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing. And I love, and this is my point, the religious like symbols that are everywhere. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. And that's what I ended up actually writing a lot of my papers about. If you know me, you know why. But yes, I love, and that whole impact with the thumb biting and everything that made such like a deep impression on me. And I love the tension of it. And it is one of the TikTok videos that I posted recently because I love it.
I love the modernization of this story but using traditional Shakespearean English. It was almost pulled directly from the play. And Baz even made a comment in part of our research saying he wanted to be as authentic to the original play as he could. I think the one exception was that he didn't want English accents. He wanted American accents to portray this language. I think through my educational upbringing, it was watching this version of the movie, of this story, that helped me grasp the play as a whole, as opposed to just reading it.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because it is not a love story.
No,
it's not a love story. Like I will fight you on this. Like not you specifically, obviously, but like people.
No, I know, no. That was one of my notes. I go, this is it's very sad. It's very tragic. Why do people want to compare their own stories to Romeo and Juliet?
Yeah, no, it's awful because you're dead at 16. Like it's terrible. It's a tragedy in like every sense of the word, because not only do they fall in love and then like miscommunication trope, which we hate, but also it doesn't solve anything because their parents are still like,
they're still when Tybalt dies, Juliet's family is after Romeo, and then Romeo's family saying, well, Tybalt started it. And the police chief said, fuck all y'all, you did this to your own damn selves.
Yeah, it's just, oh my God, it's just so wild. The miscommunication trope, I know that we talked about it briefly in our Instagram live. I had like my drunken notes and it just says like DHL. I like that. DHL. After like a rewatch, like it makes more sense, right? It makes more sense. So like my favorite part about this, as I said, is the like religious like icons and artifacts and like symbols, and just it's in like haircuts and it's on like guns and everything, and their guns or swords, like that kind of stuff. I love. I like the costumes, the music. Obviously, there's just so much going on here, and like obviously we all know the plot of Romeo and Juliet. So like, Jess, do you have like top moments of this movie that you just love and like think of all the time?
Obviously the fish tank scene. I mean, the whole Capulet party. I think I was even like sending you like POV. I got invited to the Capulets when I was sending my reaction video. That whole party from Juliet and Romeo seeing each other. I remember to this day, probably the one I love everything about Mercutio. Okay, I'll work on. That is just a hard word for me to say. I love him. I love his whole appearance. I love that he's a drag queen. I love that he is just, he's trying to play the middleman. He's friends with the Capulets. He's friends with the Montagues. He's about fun and life and like hanging with his friends. And I really liked that scene. And I think about that one a lot. I think about the fish tank one a lot. I always think about the opening scene with when the families are meeting. And I think more specifically, I think about the cinematography of a lot of these scenes, because after rewatching it not long after we did our rewatch for Moulin Rouge, it is very clear that this is Baz Luhrmann's style.
Oh, yeah.
And I think when I was younger, I didn't dissect film in that capacity or any entertainment. It's just, you like something, but you don't realize the common thread till, you're older and you revisit some of this stuff. And is the dance movie like this too? Is it shot differently?
It's very similar. Oh. Yeah.
But one of the things that I love about the party, how about you tell your story? Like, you went to the party.
I went to the party. I went to Sleep No More, which I know that I've talked about before. But Sam and I went to a Valentine's, theme at Sleep No More. And the theme on Valentine's Day was Romeo and Juliet, specifically this version. And you had to buy tickets, and it was an open bar, and you had to come in costume. And you could come as the Capulets in like suits. You could come as Juliet as an angel, as Romeo in his, or the Capulet or the Montague boys in their like surfer, like Hawaiian
shirt,
like shirts, or as like an astronaut.
I completely okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering. I didn't make the connection because it had been so long since I'd seen it. I didn't know that that's where the astronaut aspect came in.
Yeah. It was so much fun. And so they took the venue, which is like a 5-story warehouse, and then they like put like different scenes from the movie like against the backdrop. It was just awesome. It was like such a cool place, and people complimented my shoes, and we had just so much fun. And it was like a merging of all of my interests. It was like we were in New York, and like I was with Sam, and we were in costume, and it was my favorite movie and like one of the coolest places, doing like one of the coolest things I've ever done. It was like all of these things together, and it was just awesome. Sam says that it is a very cool place and a very cool movie, and we had the best time.
And you get to recreate, like you're essentially recreating this one of your favorite scenes.
And I lost my earring there, and it makes me very sad, and I think about it all the time.
What's sad is that somebody probably didn't even find it. They just kind of swept it up.
I know. And I know the day that I went to, it was literally the coldest day, like, on record for, like, New York that year. So, yeah, so that is my story, and it's a good one. But I really love this movie, and I love it for a lot of reasons. I love that Leonardo DiCaprio is, like, wet a lot. Like, he's just like wet all of the time. And then like he did this, and then like he went to Titanic where he was also like wet all of the time. And I just find that so funny.
It works with his hair.
It does.
Speaking of hair for this movie, like obviously that's Leo's hair. I didn't know that Claire Danes had a wig on this whole movie.
And she had like a special underwater wig too. Yeah, like that's crazy. And so I didn't know this. I learned this for this rewatch. And then at the end, when she is, I guess, spoilers for the end of Romeo and Juliet, when Claire Danes is like slowly waking up, right? And her hair is in these like perfect, like little like ringlet, like soft, like curls. And I remember as a child being like, no way. Like, no way. Like, I call it. Like, I call bullshit on that, like, as a child. But now it's like, okay, it's awake. Like, I get it. It's fine. Now I understand why I was so angry.
It feels validating, right?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. It really feels completely validating. If I go through, I have just like the vaguest things to say, just because I love this so much. I feel like I could talk about it forever. So to like kind of stop myself from doing that, I'll talk about it like just a little bit. Do we love that Juliet's mom is Cleopatra, dressed up as Cleopatra? Yeah, I love that. And her dad is like Caesar, like sold.
Juliet's house.
Juliet's
I love
house.
her house.
Oh my gosh, Juliet's house. And then, of course, Sam loves Paul Rudd, obviously. But when Paris is looking at the balloons and stuff coming down, and he's got this like stupid, yeah, that is one of Sam's like most used like reaction gifs and stuff. Like he loves that. It's so funny,
and he's so oblivious to everything that's going on because he just keeps looking back at her. Like, you see this?
It's so
pure.
Amazing. Oh, it's so pure. Something that I really love is Mercutio's speech about Mab when he has the ecstasy on his finger and he talks about Mab. That is something that, as we kind of mentioned earlier, like in school, that speech like felt kind of flat to me. I was like, okay, Queen Mab and like gnats and like they're galloping. Oh, okay. But like Mercutio like really brings that to life, and I love that. Obviously, I love the party, the fish tank, the bathroom, the eyes catching. You know, it's all very like iconic. I've watched it so much that I love really random little things. So I feel like that's the only thing I'm going to like add to this conversation is like stop and like say, I love this random little thing. So for example, when Romeo is just about to grab Juliet's hand to talk to her for the first time, his armor like shifts, right? And the way that the microphone is, you hear the armor like shift as his shoulders go, but that's like the only time.
Oh, those are things I have never picked up on before.
Yeah.
I feel like this rewatch, and I don't know if I was approaching it because, like, objectively to say, like, do I really enjoy this? Or I was trying to take notes for the episode, but I felt like I pulled more of the quotes of it all as opposed to, like, maybe some of the symbolism. Because, again, when I've watched this, even though we've read it during school, I've watched it out of entertainment purposes and not necessarily dissection or try to dig deeper, because even with the traditional Shakespearean lines where they go, put up your swords, it is related to gun violence. And, the guns were the symbolism of the swords from, back in when this was originally written. However, the name of the guns were dagger, which like that connection, I just thought it was... I thought that was very smart. That was really well done. And even though this was released in the 60s, the 90s, 1996, I feel like it's held up really well. Like, it doesn't feel dated when I watch it. I feel like maybe I'm just old, but I feel like it's just held up so well.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, like, it holds up so well that the only shock you're going to get when you watch this is like, oh my God, Leonardo DiCaprio is so young. Like, he's so young.
And how great was it that he didn't audition for this role. They basically used his, like, him screaming and his frustrations from What's Eating Gilbert Grape. They said, he doesn't need to audition. We know what he's capable of, and that's exactly what we need from Romeo in this role. And he was executive producer. He produced he was producer for this film.
I love it. It's just so good. So like Romeo's first introduction with like the like theater, like broken down. And he's like the sun, you know, and like the music and the cigarette, and he's moody and he's in the suit, and then he's like sweaty and he goes to play pool. Like that whole sequence is just like one of my favorite things.
Was that that was the one where I sent you a picture of, if ACOFAE had a casting, if ACOFAE was made in the 90s and there was a 90s casting, Leo would have been Tamlin in book 1, because everybody loves Tamlin in book 1, and everybody loved Leo in the 90s. And I was using that scene for reference as this moody, brooding character, and not Leo from Man in the Iron Mask.
No. Also, the music in this movie is so, I mean, we expect that from Baz, but like the music is so good. The soundtrack is so good. And it was so successful. And it's such like a 90s like kind of portrait of what was going on there. But it's so good.
Or like even the songs that I love when Baz finds like, I say quote unquote modern, but like we know with Moulin Rouge, he pulled 80s songs. You know, he kind of pulls like popular songs, I guess is a better term for it. And integrates it into the style that the movie needs. So the choir boys, when they were singing, you know, when they were singing, yes. Or when Juliet's with her wet nurse, who's like just now her day nurse at this point, they're talking about like seek happy nights to days, which I love because because of religion and just like this setting, seek happy nights to days. It's you assume it's the other way around, but you know that the wet nurse is like, go get you some, come back in the morning, and Love Fool is playing.
It's glorious. It's glorious. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this movie. I mean, like, obviously we have the framework of like telling us what's going to happen, telling us how long it's going to be. Like, they have a whole like pre-made movie trailer that they have like in here before it even starts. But like, Romeo has some really beautiful foreshadowing. Right before he, you know, like throws back his ecstasy, he says the lighting is blue. So on his silver, like, night outfit, like, it looks so good in his eyes. Like, the lighting is just beautiful. And he says, like, you know, I feel like some misgiving, like some consequence in the stars that'll happen tonight. And then it flash forwards and it shows us him in the future in his like shirt walking down the aisle to Juliet's like you know, like
the altar,
like
the
the altar or whatever, like where her bed is or whatever. And like, so that, and we get like foreshadowing there, and it's so beautiful, and we get that right away. And like the color blue is like really kind of prevalent throughout all of this. It's just so good. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm looking at my notes and I'm just like, I could just talk about this forever, but I don't want to. Last thing, the symbolism of Romeo like taking off his knight's mask, right? He like dunks his head in the water and like, you know, gets the drugs out of his system, like throws down his mask, and it's like lit up and it's so beautiful. And then he like goes out and like, meets Juliet.
You know what I like, that part in the scene where they're just like going around, they're just making out, they're loving it, you know, they're just like hormones are going.
In the elevator.
Sense. The elevator. I love it. I love it all so much. But then I love when they separate and like the wet nurse is taking her and she's like, you don't know who he is. He's a Montague. And he's so confused, like not even knowing who she is. She's just like, wait, she's a Capulet. It just reminded me of the carefree college days where you just make maybe it's just me, make out with somebody in a bar and you had no idea this whole history. And you're like, oh, to be young and carefree and not even think about pandemics. Like, and they go, wait, they had no idea. They had no idea who each other were. And next thing you know, at the end of the night, they go, see you tomorrow. We're getting married because I need to lock it down.
Well, I love that. I love that. So, like, immediately after that, obviously, like, we have the pool scene where Leo is just, like, wet the whole time. And he's so awkward, and he's so cute, and he's so adorable. And, like, I love Claire Danes. Like, so I was reading that Claire Danes got this part because she...
My So-Called Life?
Oh, yeah, she came off as, like, more mature and older than she was. And they used My So-Called Life to, like, kind of back that.
Well, did you, like, I think they did an interview with Leo, and he goes on top of that, out of all the actresses that he had auditioned with, she's the only one who made eye contact. And he goes, Juliet had to have that power in her words, and she was the only one who was able to make these, like, formidable connections with our characters and with each other for, like, this huge role.
Yeah, no, absolutely huge. And she has to sell it, like, from the first time she talks to him, right? And she does, like, they start flirting about saints and hands and all that, and then, like, yeah. But, like, the pool scene, we just love that. It's like, she's like, oh, me. She's like, speak again, bright angel, like, all of that. And they're, like, kissing and, like, super kissing. I was watching this, so I was just like, oh my God, okay. And then, it's just like, so good.
Leading up until that scene, just the party, and obviously her parents want to pair her off to Paris. And I love that she's already made this connection with Romeo. And so here she is dancing with Paris, and she's so awkward, and she keeps looking back because she's like, I don't want to be here. I kind of want to be over. I just love the awkwardness, the way it's portrayed, because you feel it, which is perfect and in line with the character, because she is a teenager. She is awkward. She doesn't want to be with this person. She wants to be with the guy she was just kind of, like, making out with.
Like 13 in the play, I think, right? 13, like 16 here. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's all weird. It's all weird. We understand it. We acknowledge that it's weird.
Can I say, like, you know how before they even meet, Romeo is going on and on about Rosaline. Yeah, and then I love that night he meets Juliet, and then he goes to Friar Lawrence, or the priest Lawrence, and he says, young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. And I go, Billy Shakespeare knew men ain't shit, and we're always fuckboys from the beginning. That's what I thought.
And I liked his pause when he delivered that, too. He was like,
he goes, eyes.
And he's
you
like,
know, he was the only actor who spoke in iambic pentameter.
Iambic pentameter.
Yes. You can see. I had it, and then I was thinking too hard. You can edit that out, Sam.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I like a lot of his lines. Of course, his, love moderately, his, altar speech is so beautiful.
I like his part where Juliet's being dramatic, and she goes, you better handle this shit or I'm going to unalive myself. And he goes, calm down. I got you, but you need to calm down. You've known the boy. But I also understand, like, they didn't, part of me is like, you can't completely, like, I understand why you're upset with your parents. They have this whole arranged marriage thing going, basically. Yes, you found your love. You also didn't tell anybody you just got married.
Yeah.
I mean, at which case they probably wouldn't have, they would have just annulled it. But something that I noticed this watch that I never noticed before, when she obviously loses her virginity to Romeo and she kicks him out of his room and he goes out the window, and her mom comes in and her nurse takes the sheets in the back. Like, she takes them really quickly because obviously, there's going to be blood on the sheets. There's a moment that I thought her mother knew that she had sex, and she was so excited. I don't know, but it was the first thing I thought. But then I think, like, I kept watching the moment, and I knew her mother didn't know, but the nurse obviously did. The other thing that's not related and not Shakespearean at all is when they have that scene, they're cuddling, the sheets are just placed very artistically, and there's the dolls in the background, and all I could think of is the unicorns in Dodgeball.
Oh, that's amazing. Just everywhere.
This is so awkward. Can you imagine? You're just, and of course, like, dolls are collectible. I swear to God, if I had dolls looking down at me, no thank you. I'd be so, like, how did he should have dipped because of that.
Yeah, no thank
you.
Sorry. No thank you. No thank you on the dolls. I'm looking and like, yeah, so there's, I really love that our priest is like, you know, what the hell with Rosaline? I like that a lot. I like that, like, Juliet doesn't even know Rosaline exists, right? Like, she has no idea. The miscommunication trope is just like one of my least favorite tropes. And like, that is exactly what this is.
That's this whole thing.
It's the whole thing. It's also like slightly jealous friends too, right? Like Mercutio's like, dude, why aren't you hanging out with me? And Romeo's like, well, like I got all this other stuff to do because I'm married and I'm trying to like end this feud between our families. It's just,
well, and then that's what the Friar Lawrence brings up is he goes, this is a bad idea. And then he gets a vision or whatever. And then he goes, wait, this is actually could be the bridge that stops the feuding together. But he doesn't even get a chance to tell his friends, you know, because you have the Capulets, just start beating the shit out of Romeo for no reason. And Romeo goes like, I'm not going to do it. I literally just married your cousin.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what's the line? It's like, John Leguizamo's like kicking him in his face. He's like, right. If you knew the reasons I had to love thee. She's like, oh my gosh, you're so good though. You're all just so good. The movie's all so good. It's all so good. And then the storm comes in and like that was a real storm in like real life and like Mercutio's like speech and stuff like that's really cool. One of my small favorite parts is after Mercutio is killed. I feel like we should say spoilers, but like this is like
the
fact,
play's
right?
been out
like,
since 1600s. Yeah. We can be spoiler free.
Yeah, we're free from spoilers. Okay, so after Mercutio is killed and Romeo goes after Tybalt for revenge, and Romeo's like driving the car like a maniac, right? And he like flips it and he gets out. When he gets out of the car, he has this like moment where he like settles in before he like runs after Tybalt, and it's very sexy. It's one of those very small, very sexy moments.
Young Leo is just he is a very attractive man.
He is
just, and he knows it. He knows it because he still does it too. Like, I mean, I don't think he is no longer in his prime.
No,
but whoever gets with him, I feel like you don't care. You just get to say, because in my head, remember we were a while back, a few episodes back, I think we were talking about Ewan McGregor, how he's obviously aged, but he will always be Christian to us in our head forever and eternity. That's how I think of Leo. He'll always be 90s Leo to me.
Yeah.
And so I think in my head, I can get past, like, not that that man will ever come on to me. But if he did, I think in my head, I could be like, I could look past this. I could think of teenage Jessica in this moment right now and channel her a little bit.
Something that I'm trying to think, like, something that I really, really appreciate about this movie is the priest. We're talking about the priest and laying down some truth. And after Romeo kills Tybalt, after he does like the deed with Juliet, after he escapes, you know, he goes to the priest, right? He goes to Friar Lawrence. They have this whole thing. They hatch the plan, right? And Friar Lawrence is like you're banished. Like they banished you. And Romeo's like, the world is over. I'm banished. And the priest is just like, you have a pack of blessings, like light on your back. Like, aren't you happy? Like, you're alive. There, aren't you happy? Like, you know, all these things, like, you're happy. And Romeo, it just shows that, like, Romeo is so wrapped up in, like, his own personal, like, drama that he just doesn't see, like, anything else around him. He's just like, oh, I can't be with Juliet. Like, everything is awful. It's like, no, like, the world is a big place. You can be with her literally anywhere, except that's not true because you're children. But, like, you see what I was getting at. It's just wild. It's wild. It's a crazy story. It is so crazy to me that this is the story that became, like, a classic.
I feel like everybody wants to be like, oh, my gosh, this is a love story. But is it? Like, with all the love stories and the contemporary romances and the fantasy romances and everything in between that we've read, this doesn't feel like a romance. It's just one giant miscommunication trope of warring families.
Yeah, of warring families that doesn't get solved, and it's just like beautiful, beautiful people, right? Like Claire Danes is so gorgeous. Paul Rudd, gorgeous. Leo, obviously. Mercutio, yes. Benvolio, all day. Like all of them are just, they're all just perfect. I'm trying to look. There is a second foreshadowing. My notes. So the first time I watched this, I got like progressively drunker, and the second time I watched this, I was fine. So like my notes say foreshadowing to death, a thing like. So don't know what that means exactly, but I will tell you that there must be a second foreshadowing before the death. Before the death.
I love that you just kept drinking and you're like, thought, which is also very, that you were drinking and you go, hey, foreshadow.
I have a thought. I also have a note 3 lines down that says foreshadow number 3. So it's there. It's all there. These foreshadowing.
I feel like I should watch movies the way you do. Because you have so much fun. And your notes, because I think the same thing happened with Moana and with Moulin Rouge, where you tried to show me the notes and then you go, I stopped writing.
And they get all slanty. Yeah. So if you're wondering where my foreshadowing scenes are, they kind of bracket Claire Danes' performance.
She's also wondering too. So.
Yeah. So when Claire goes to Friar Lawrence's cell after she says like she'll marry Paris, like the scene that you referenced earlier, I love that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes. She's
wonderful in it.
So good. She's got the gloves and she's got the hat. She looks so innocent. She goes in the cell and she's like, I long to die. And she's got the gun and she's crying and it's so good. Like that, all of that.
And I think even that whole scene from like the second that she walked into the church, and obviously the friar knows what's going on. He married her already, and Paul Rudd's character is there, and he knows why she's there. So she goes, "Oh, I'm just here for a confession." He goes, "Oh, this is my priority. I have to take care of it right away." And Paul Rudd, like the good puppy dog boy that he is, just like in the beginning of the movie with his face of excitement with the fireworks and the balloons, he has that same naivete in this part where he goes, "I'm just gonna give you a chaste kiss on the cheek to keep with you till next Thursday or whatever." And she's standing there like, "Get the fuck off of me." No reaction, point blank. Like, she is not having any of this shit. And he goes, "Bye." And she's like, "Fuck out of here."
I'm trying to think of the line. I think it's like, what must be shall be on, Thursday next. And she's like, "What must be will be." And the priest is like, "Well, that's a certain text." Whoa. Like, what even is that? Yeah, like, no, we love our beautiful himbo Paul Rudd. Like he makes it. He's like this little bit of comic relief that is just perfect. He's perfect. He's perfect in everything.
He's just a good. He is. Even though in his head they're probably dating and they're clearly not. He's a good, in context, he's a good boyfriend in this movie. He means so well. He has such a good heart.
He's trying so hard.
He comes over to her house to bring her flowers after Tybalt dies. Like, he was there already just to say hi to her, and then they find out Tybalt dies, and he's like, and they, she didn't come see him, obviously. She's sad, she's upset, and he's like, this is awkward. Like, this isn't exactly how I wanted to bring flowers, but here we are. He's just trying to make light of the whole situation from start to finish.
Oh, we love him. We love him. So my notes do drunkenly describe DHL in big block letters.
That's what you were saying, the live. I go, why do you have DHL in your notes?
So, Jess, do you see why I have DHL in my notes now after your rewatch?
That the the piece of paper just like flew off on the ground. Who the fuck was gonna see that?
Yeah, it's like, oh. And like you see this like angry teenager like leaving this house that you're supposed to like deliver this very important message to, and you just let him like storm by you and not like, excuse me, sir. Like,
well, even when they're having the whole fake funeral for Juliet and Friar Lawrence is there and he sees I had to look up on IMDb. I swear to God, I thought that was like baby Darren Criss. It's not, but it could be. And so he just walks in and he sees Juliet and the whole family. He freaks the fuck out because he doesn't know the behind the scenes. And you see the look on the friar's face.
You're just like, no. He's like, make haste to Mantua with my letter, DHL. And DHL is like, bet. Totally.
DHL,
we'll fix it. Rely on us.
Reason DHL worked for you, kind of, is because you became friends with that guy, the DHL delivery guy, and you had like a secret area that you could like
put my packages and stuff. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So like, yeah, obviously this delivery man was not living up to his full potential, and the miscommunication just, off the charts. Juliet's funeral with the neon crosses and the flowers and the candles and the lights it's just top tier, right?
It's beautiful. I don't know if it's just because of this year, but I really thought, I always want to be cremated. I still do. I want to be turned into a diamond. That's my thing. But the candles were so beautiful. Just like the candled altar, and they just raised her. It was very lovely. It was very respectable. Here for it.
Gorgeous, right? Gorgeous.
I have a question. I think I know the answer. Which family do you feel you related to most?
The Capulets.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like I would be friends with the Montagues, but the Capulets for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So I remember I sent a couple of TikToks to you months and months and months and months ago of teachers showing this video to their students in class, and then coming to this part that we're talking about, the end, and then everybody just like losing their minds.
Shook. Like they had never, it was, and maybe this is how their plan went for the year, where they were showing it first, then going to read it and dissect it. Because if you read the play, you would have known that's the end result. These kids were dumbstruck.
They were screaming. They were yelling. They
didn't understand. And it's, and in fairness, when that's usually, I guess, like middle school, high school, if you are watching rom-coms or romances, up until that point, everything has a happily ever after.
Yeah. And boy, does this not. Yeah. So, and I know that a couple of teachers have like messaged me and said like, I have like a love-hate relationship with this movie because I show it every year, it's so good, but like the kids' reactions, like I would love to see kids' reactions to this. Like it's still so good. And people like screaming, like just look down at her, like just move your hand. Like I personally feel like Juliet has a lot of like wherewithal and like awareness to like recognize what is happening as fast as she does, because like she's waking up from like a 3-day coma, right? And she opens her eyes and she's just like, yo, okay, check, and then she sees Romeo and she's like, all right, bet. And then he starts like swallowing poison, and then she's like, wait, and then she just flies into action, right? I'd still be sitting there just like, yo, I sat up too fast.
Right. I'd still be groggy. I wouldn't even, she was very like no eye crusty. Yeah. She was a very beautiful sleeper. And Sabrina was over a couple weeks ago, and I'm laying on the couch. I am not a cute sleeper. If you love me, then like you must really love me, because I do not sleep like a Disney princess. So the fact that Juliet is just this beautiful, princess sleeping on her pillowed altar, she just waking, and the gracefulness of her going to brush Romeo's face with the back of her
hand, just like slowly, just like, yes, of course, this makes the most sense. And
also, what about, okay, I get that it's part of the story, but then I was trying to think, he was scared and he knocked it back, because I feel like if I get flustered or something jumps out at me, I'm not hitting myself in the face. My hand's going left or right.
I don't know. The vial is like this big.
I know.
It's
That's
like
just me overthinking.
Sample.
But when you try to insert yourself to think,
what would I do? Like, I don't know. I'd probably just drop it like all down the front of myself.
It would be messy.
Yeah.
It would not have been consumed, is what I mean.
Yeah. It'd be like, and Juliet being like, I will kiss thy lips, happily some poison doth like linger on them. It's like, just like suck the collar of my shirt. Like, I'm sure I got some. Right?
I honestly, I did forget the end scene, and maybe it's because usually by that point in the movie, I know where the movie goes, so I just shut it off. But I didn't realize that she shot her. I completely forgot. That she shot herself in the head. I think I thought, and I know I've seen the whole movie. I think I'm so used to shutting it off. Like, okay, it's the end. There never was a story with such woe of Juliet and her Romeo. That I thought that she did suck the poison out of his lips at some point. I go, well, it wasn't enough, but okay. If that's what we're going with, Billy. And then keep going.
No, yeah. It's...
But in the play, it's the dagger.
Yeah, and she lifts, she's like, oh, happy dagger, and like, does the thing. Which is why it's so interesting that the guns are named after daggers, because then, like, technically she is, if she said, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It's so good. And then, like, nothing is resolved, and then the newscast ends, and that's that. And, it's so good. It's so good. People hated this, as with all of, like, Baz's work. Like, people really, really, really passionately dislike this.
You know what? I passionately dislike them because they don't have taste.
Yeah, like, I feel like it's not even worth, like, pulling up and reading reviews about this, because obviously you can see exactly what they're going to say. They're going to say, like, you shouldn't use modern music, you shouldn't use modern settings, you shouldn't use modern costumes,
And I think that's exactly what makes this wonderful and interpretive, and that gets students and young people, like, think of when we got into it, and then even like the TikToks you were referring to, re-exposing it to different generations. It's having it in those modern settings that makes it exciting and makes people want to learn about the classics. Because I remember when we had discussed in our first episode, I'm at a point in my life where I feel like if I didn't read the quote unquote classics as part of that high school curriculum or summer reading, why? I really don't have an interest now.
Yeah. Oh, God. That's so true. That is so, so completely true. And this movie obviously, like, is a classic. We're still talking about it now. The like, anniversary is coming up, and people love it. People love Baz. They love his work, obviously. I personally feel that everyone should be exposed to this version of Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, everyone needs this.
I feel like and this is not a statement of the type of actor that he is now. I feel like his roles were so emotional, the ones that he's taken on from, like, the 80s and the 90s, and how he was as an actor then set him up to be the actor that he is today, because it gave him that exposure. Obviously, I think he's very talented. I think there were other roles. I mean, this isn't like a Leonardo DiCaprio podcast, but I just think that these are some very strong roles that he should have won awards for, and he wasn't even he wasn't even nominated.
No, like, people really didn't care about him at all until, like, I feel like The Aviator, maybe. And then people started to care a little bit.
I feel like this is, like, on, like, how we always say, you're like, we talked about this before. Like, why is everybody coming around a year later or 2 years later?
Yeah, no, this is like prime Leonardo DiCaprio, so I feel like everyone should watch this. And also, like, everyone should see Claire Danes like this, because she's just such a strong Juliet. And Juliet can be, like, kind of annoying in some other versions, but, like, in this one, she's really great. And, like, the nurse is great, and the setting, and just the camera, and the music, and the signs. Like, all the signs in this movie are, like, quotes or, like, nods
Easter
to,
eggs
to, like, other, like, Shakespeare stuff. And it's all just so well done. But again, like, people just really hated this, and they hated the language. And, like, even editor Sam said that it was clear to him that they used, like, some German translation because of the way that they talked about days and, like, time and stuff, which I thought was kind of interesting. And he said it like bugged him. It was all he could think about.
I liked one of the things that I liked, aside from all the Easter eggs, and this isn't a critique at all, I had noticed, because we had watched Moulin Rouge so recently, the continuity of the billboard. So when Moulin Rouge came out in the 2000s, and then this movie came out in the 90s, there's a billboard, and this movie takes place, majority of it is in Mexico City in Mexico. There's a giant billboard on the side of a building, and it's L'Amour, and it's in this Coca-Cola font. It's red and white. It's very obvious. And then you go to Moulin Rouge, the same billboard exists, but it's more, because you see it, you know, in and out of with Christian and Satine, but also with, like, the scenes with the green fairy, and it's more green and white, but it's the same font. That little thing, it's such a small thing, but I feel like when you're a fan of someone and something, and you see that little thing, it just feels like that was for you. That was for the fans. You know, I just love little things like that in movies.
I'm trying to think if there's anything like that in Strictly Ballroom, but, you know, I haven't seen Strictly Ballroom in a really long time, so I wouldn't be able to say for sure. Just what's your favorite, like, all-time favorite part of this movie?
I think I love the song. I love the Kissing You song. I was actually listening to it before the episode, just to, like, focus, because I feel like it's a nice it's a nice overarching theme, because it's called, like, Romeo and Juliet's, like, theme song, but it encompasses so much of the movie. I think that's probably it. Like, the, you know, music is such a tie-in, you know, to a lot of scenes. What about you?
My favorite scene, I think, in the whole movie would be from the bathroom in the party to Juliet watching Romeo, like, drive away, and, like, the wind comes up, and she's like, my only love sprang from my only hate, like, that whole party scene where they meet, and they, like, go around the house, and they kiss, and, like, the elevator, like, all of that, and their, like, witty banter, and, like, you know, palm to palm, all of that, I think is my favorite.
I love, you know, that whole palm to palm, kiss to kiss, like, that whole scene. If you look at because I watch everything with subtitles, looking at, like, even just reading the lines, it's there's a lot of euphemism in there, and people don't realize that. And I say that in a way of, think about, you're 13, you're learning about this for the first time, you're bored. And I mean, everybody's making "that's what she said" jokes the second you know what that means. And I feel like there's an appreciation there with the witty banter that you might not necessarily pick up in a traditional classroom setting if it's read by every other student taking turns to read out loud.
There's a perfect example of this, and it is after Romeo leaves Juliet and he goes to his friends the next morning, and Mercutio is like, you know, like, where were you, whatever, and, like, they start their little banter, and then Romeo goes, like, why then is my pump well floured? And he does his like, like for balls and stuff. And it was just like, ha ha, ha ha. That's a dick joke that I didn't get before, but I get it now. It's funny like that. Yeah. Because like sitting in like Miss Moore's English class, going around the room, just like didn't hit like this. But she did show this movie. So I will be forever like eternally grateful for her for that. Yeah.
I'm glad we did a rewatch of it, though.
Oh, I know.
I feel like there are certain things that I don't actively watch. I don't know if it's because I just don't feel like I have time, or it's because I'll put background music on.
And then you just like watch it.
It's never background music.
Yeah, and then you just watch it. I end up watching the first like 40 minutes of this pretty like consistently. More so than Moulin Rouge, because when I watch Moulin Rouge, I want to like stay for a huge chunk of it. But for this version of Romeo and Juliet, like I know every single word, I know every pause, I know every line, I know every scene, like I know all the things. So yeah, I think I watched until like the end of the party, and then I just turned it off.
This year marks its 25th anniversary,
Blech.
And usually by this time, they're making remakes of this. Do you foresee that happening?
Like a Boz remake specifically, or just like a Romeo and Juliet like remake?
Either. I mean, I feel like you can't remake Baz.
No, I don't think you could. I think like Baz would have to remake Baz. I don't know. The West Side Story, right? Like that's. Yeah. So yeah, remakes for Romeo and Juliet. Like no, not really. Just like cheesy ones, right? Just like not fantastic ones like Disney, like
maybe, or like Disney or DreamWorks, or they do like Romeo and Juliet retellings. I think there was a Romeo and Juliet animated, some sort of kid version, but I'm sure they actually had a happy ending.
Yeah, for real. But bum. Yeah, so I guess you're right. Like there really isn't anything, and that's kind of really interesting. But I think
it's telling.
Yeah,
I feel like it's telling because it doesn't need, like in a way, you're almost saying it doesn't need to be remade because it doesn't.
It doesn't. No, it absolutely doesn't. And I feel like it would lose a lot. Like this version specifically, someone would have to say like, I'm going to remake Boz's, like Romeo, Juliet, like whatever, and like. I don't think it could be done. So I feel like we're finally all appreciating this for the classic that it is. And, more love to this, more love to Leo and his hair and his
wetness.
eyes and being wet all of the time in the rain, in the pool, and Claire Danes and her wig and angel wings and being in white. And like, she's just so delightful. And it's all just so delightful. Everyone watch this movie so we can talk about it. Yeah.
That's all I got. Yeah.
That's all I got.
So please feel free to follow us on Instagram, ACOFAE Podcasts. You can also find us on TikTok. You have Laura at ACOFAE Laura and myself, ACOFAE Jessica. Please feel free to give us ratings on any platform that's actually giving us ratings. I think it's really just Apple Podcasts right now. But everybody listening, we appreciate you. We're so excited. And more giveaways to come.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.